No! Drink the bleach!
Hey everyone, welcome to Reading Backwards, the manga reading vlog permanently stuck in the past. My name's Tim, and it's time we talk about Bleach Chapter 2, Starter. Now, this chapter is significantly shorter than the first one. Not a whole lot happens in it. We are introduced to a few new characters, a couple new Soul Reaper concepts, but for the most part, it's kind of just a transition between Ichigo's origin story and the first real multi-chapter story arc in the series. But it starts with Ichigo's father waking him up first thing in the morning by trying to wrestle him. And as usual, Ichigo beats him, comes out on top. And that's when he notices that his father is totally fine. The wounds on his back that he received from the hollow the night before are totally healed, inexplicably. And he asks his father about this, and his father has no idea what he's talking about. What wounds? What are you talking about, son? And so at that point, Ichigo goes downstairs and heads outside and sees that his father has started repairing the hole, the hollow ripped in the side of their house the night before. And he seems to have this alternate memory. His father says, yeah, it's crazy. A car plows into our house in the middle of the night, and none of us were hurt. It's a miracle. And Ichigo's kind of confused, and he sees that his two sisters are also okay. Their wounds are miraculously healed, and they also have this altered memory of what happened the night before. And that's when Ichigo also realizes that he doesn't know what happened after he killed the Hollow the night before. And he doesn't know what happened to Rukia. She just kind of disappeared, and he wonders if she went back to the Soul Society. But in any case, he tries to get on with his life. He goes to school, and that's when we're introduced to a couple new characters. The first one is Orihime, this kind of bubbly, girly girl who has a crush on Ichigo. They make it very apparent early on that she has this unrequited crush on him. And then the other character is her best friend, Tatsuki, who is this kind of edgy tomboy character who had a brief friendship with Ichigo when they were in elementary school, I believe. And if I didn't know any better, I would say that early on, Tite Kubo intended to write a kind of love triangle around these characters. Based on their interactions, it seems like they could have easily been two different love interests for Ichigo, but for the most part, I don't think that pans out at all. Orihime really ends up being the only significant love interest up to this point. Again, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's a story for another day. In any case, he has a brief conversation with them. Then he sits down at his desk and looks to the right, and he sees that there's a new student sitting at the desk next to him. One Rukia Kuchiki. His classmates introduce her to him and say, hey, this is Rukia. She just started coming to school. She transferred recently. And Ichigo is kind of amazed that this Soul Reaper is back in his life again at his school for some reason. And he starts to panic. And then she passes him a note that basically says something like, make a scene and I will kill you. And so after the first class period, he takes her outside and demands that she explain herself. And she tells him, look, you are a Soul Reaper now. You stole my dark force, my Soul Reaper power. I don't know how it happened, but when you fell on my sword, you took all my power away from me. I'm now powerless. I have to recharge inside of this fake human body that we Soul Reapers can take on whenever we need to interact with the human world. And I can only perform a few basic demonic spells. There's a variety of these like simple kind of conjuring spells that the Soul Reapers can use. She can only do stuff like that. She can't wield her sword. She can't take on her Soul Reaper form. And she tells him, you're a Soul Reaper now. You have my power, so you have to do my job for me. And Ichigo tells her, look, I don't want any of that. I only took your power last night so I could protect my family and get rid of that monster. I have no interest in doing your job. At which point, Rukia slips on a magical glove that she uses to slap the soul out of Ichigo's body. He's just staring in disbelief at his body lying on the ground. He's in his soul form, his Soul Reaper form with his kimono and his sword and everything. And she says, look, follow me. We got a job to do. She takes Ichigo to this park where she explains that there is another ghost in the area, that recently a young boy passed away and his spirit haunts the playground there. And Ichigo tells her, yeah, I know, I've actually seen that ghost a few times before. And she tells him, well, he's about to be eaten, because I just got a contact from the Soul Society that tells me there's going to be another hollow in this area. And if that hollow finds this young boy's soul, it will devour him. So we need to stop it before it's too late. And as if on cue, this little boy, this little blood-smeared ghost boy, comes running out of the bushes with this big spidery hollow chasing after him. At which point, I'm kind of scratching my head and wondering how common of an occurrence this is. And if this is a common occurrence in this world, how has Ichigo lived his life up until this point without noticing the hollows? He notices the ghosts. He can see the ghosts. How did he know nothing about hollows until Rukia appeared in his life? It might explain that later in the series. I don't remember it being the case, but it's just kind of weird that he hasn't noticed the hollows up until this point, and now they're just a thing. They're just a common occurrence. But in any case, Ichigo draws his sword, and he's about to attack the hollow when Rukia stops him and says, no, wait. I thought you said you didn't want any part of this. You can't have it both ways. You're either all or nothing. If you're going to be a Soul Reaper, you have to protect all the spirits. You can't just protect the ones that are right in front of you that are convenient for you to save. You have to save all ghosts equally, and you have to slay all hollows equally. And you have to be willing to put your life on the line to do that. At which point, Ichigo remembers last night that Rukia did that for him. That she dived in between him in that hollow and stabbed it in the face and nearly got killed because of it in order to save him. And so, after a bit of hesitation, he fully draws his sword. He attacks this hollow. He kills it almost instantly, saves the little kid's ghost. And then he turns around and points at Rukia and says, look, I didn't want these powers. I didn't want to be a Soul Reaper. But now that I am, I'm going to do this job. And it's not because of honor or self-sacrifice or anything. It's because I owe you one. You saved my life. You helped me protect my family. And so now I'm going to do your job for you until you get your powers back, at which point I want nothing to do with this. And that's the end of the chapter. It is an interesting little final note to end on because it gives us a bit more of a peek at Ichigo as a character. I've heard a lot of people say, I mentioned this in the previous video, I've heard a lot of people say that they don't like Ichigo, that he doesn't really have that much of a personality, and I beg to differ. I think he has a very strong, noble kind of character. Maybe a kind of old-fashioned character archetype that not a lot of people like nowadays, but it is there. And it's actually at a chapter much later on where we get to see more of that, and we get to see the core of who he is. I think Ichigo, for the most part, puts on a very tough facade. He's the kind of character who has dealt with a lot in his life already. He's had to grow up very fast after losing his mother at a young age. He's had to help his father with their business. He's had to help raise his two younger sisters, especially. And because of that, he's become a very hardened person. And so I think he kind of tries to hide his softness under that rough exterior. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about that later in the series. That's it for Chapter 2. I hope you'll join me when we discuss Chapter 3. Until then, remember, before you open up your manga, flip it around and read it backwards. Take care, everybody.
Bleach is healthy. It's mostly water. And we're mostly water. Therefore, we are bleach.